what's on offer with the Visionary Leadership Program is very different from anything else that's out there in the marketplace. But firstly, the prime difference is that this training work is focused on how do you access and bring out the greatness in yourself? How do you effortlessly evoke the authentic genius that's deep inside you and live from that? What stops you from accessing that in yourself? Because this is the essence of the visionary leadership work. What brought you here? What appealed to you? What resonated with something inside that made you go, yes, that's what I want more of in life?
Purely business, really,
right,
to start with. I've done lots of journey work, and very curious about how that will affect my business life.
What specifically are you looking for, as far as you could say so far? What are you looking for in terms of internal qualities, something to discover in yourself that would help you?
Authentic leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to be authentic, to stand in truth, and to operate in alignment with that truth.
Yeah.
And presumably to be effective.
Yes.
To get other people on side.
Yeah.
To produce results, to meet deadlines and to achieve goals.
And remain motivated, focused, all that sort of thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you should say this. William's saying, fear of failure is here. Now, I mean, if I'd inquired slightly more deeply than I had previously, I would have realized there was a massive issue for me. And in the early part of developing this work, I realized that fear of failure is huge for probably all of us. The thing is that we perceive failure to be different according to our personality, to our different games. What means failure to one person may not mean failure to a different one. So our sense of failure is different. And we've all got a deep, deep sense of wanting to avoid it. And so, just to cheer you up on this, William, I'll tell you that for one whole day this week, we're going to be doing something called Failure Day. We go there big time. Okay, so if there's this issue here for us, I mean, the first thing is to bring it out into the open and to realize and to admit that there's an issue here. And we've all got it. It's some way or other. And we'll spend best part of a morning describing what does this mean, what does it look like. And you know what, I'll start you guys off and I'll say, you know what, I've failed in so many ways in life. Because until you stop and admit the failure that's been here in the past, what chance do you stand to meet the driver, to meet the fear of failure itself? If you're like me, I know that in the past I would do anything to kid myself that I hadn't failed. And had done since I was a kid. I would change the game, metaphorically move the goalposts, describe it as something else. Have all these aphoristic sayings that, it's just part of the learning curve. I just got a different result from the one I intended. And you know what? I mean, sometimes those type of strategies can motivate you in the short run, but they don't cause the real breakthroughs. What causes the real breakthrough in this modality is to stop and to get real. And to go, you know what? Yeah, I failed. I've screwed up. I've messed up. I've not achieved what I wanted to, what my heart wanted to, what my prayer was. I've hurt others in that. I've let others down. I've let myself down, whatever it is for you. And then we can look at what is it that really needs to be faced emotionally at the deepest level. And using journey style work, we can break through with that. This is an adaptation of our lily pad model from the book Consciousness, the New Currency. Brandon came up with a model and she said, well, if there was a lily pad, and that represents our behavior. So this is the superficial expression of behavior. And if this was floating on the pond of consciousness, and we looked down from the top, what we'd see essentially was just the lily pad. And I'm saying there are 3 different types of lily pads here. We've got the big lily pads, which are the inflationary, so big. The uplift, the fakery, the inflation. So the bravado, the bulldozing, if you like, the bullying, the cheating, the representation of self as more than we authentically believe it to be. So some exaggerated form. Then we've got the small or deflationary version. So there's our small lily pad, deflation. This is holding back, playing small, hiding out, pretending not to care, collapse, victimhood, this type of game. We know the games. This one here is rigid, so rigidity. That's why I've kind of drawn it like a box here, because we box ourselves in, we barricade ourselves often with rules into a fixed mindset, into a defensive, stiff way of being in life. This, I mean, it's neither big nor small, it's rigid, so it's boxed. You've got the box metaphor there. If we look at this from the top, all we see are the behaviors that come out of these patterns. They're often automatic behaviors, and I'm pointing here particularly to the negative behaviors, the ones we want to be free from. So if we address the behavior, as a lot of people would do, if we try to chop off the lily pad, what tends to happen? You tell me. If you chop off a lily pad, if you go, okay, I'm going to address this behavior, I'm going to change this behavior, what happens?
Another one grows.
Yeah, normally. A, it's not too successful a strategy. B, if you chop off a lily pad, generally another lily pad is going to grow. The behavior or the need to behave in a particular way is going to be expressed maybe slightly differently, but the expression is still going to come to the surface. The reason these guys down here and this set down here, we're conditioned from early life. This is our conditioning here, a representation of our conditioning. For me, central to it are beliefs. How you believe is how you perceive. How you perceive your sense of reality. So core to our conditioning are beliefs. We've looked at beliefs several times this week and said, okay, what can we do here? We can clean them up. We can change unhealthy beliefs and just be sitting in a more expansive version of truth. Feeding into these beliefs, rules, which often are related to the rigidity, and I'm talking here about arbitrary rules, the rules that have got no real value connection or even logical connection, except that they protect us emotionally. They feed into our beliefs. They make our beliefs seem more concrete, more real. Our vows and promises do the same thing. Our labels, which we've already looked at, so our negative word patterns, particularly the way we identify with them, feed into our beliefs. And our values, what we prize, what we really appreciate and take note of in life, feed into our beliefs. So these are our conditioning mechanisms here. And deeper down than that, if you look down into kind of the silt of our unconscious, down here we have unmet emotions. I tend to call it the emotional no-go zone. And I'll put no-go in inverted commas because that's the story we tell ourselves. These are the avoided emotions, the ones that we don't even want to admit are there, let alone feel. And these are the powerhouse. These are actually the catalysts that cause the plant to have the power to grow and to express as the behaviors. So down here, what do we know goes down here in this emotional no-go zone? What are some of the emotions that you've avoided like it was death? Because ultimately that's what we fear. There's kind of real core emotions down here, and we fear, oh, if I go there, it'll be the end of me. For me, I lived life for years believing that rage, if I expressed rage, if I felt rage, that the game would be over. That would be it. We'd all die. That's such bullshit. What belongs down here for you? What have you recognized? Exposure. So fear of exposure. So they're all fears of certain emotions. Fears of. So we'll say failure because we've looked at that. Definitely that's down here with all its different masks. What else? Shame. Yeah. What about vulnerability? And weakness for some of us. Oh, I think humiliation is a universal humiliation. I think we all fear that massively. What else would be down here? What about unlovability? Being unloved. The unknown? Yeah, what if he didn't know? What if he couldn't know how to live life? What if he couldn't know the facts, couldn't know, couldn't know how to do it? If you follow the logic of this, and it's a pretty simple logic, to avoid these emotions down here, we behave in a particular way up here. But the beauty of this is it's so simple. Because if you were terrified of, we'll say, vulnerability and weakness down here, and you wanted to pretend to yourself and to others, oh, this is not an issue. I'm not vulnerable. I'm not weak. Oh, don't go there. What are you going to see expressed up here? You're going to see inflation, deflation, or rigidity. If you fear weakness, you fear vulnerability, what are you going to see on the lily pad?
Inflation.
Yeah, you're going to see the opposite of that fear, because that's what we need to convince ourselves and to convince others that that is not an issue, because that's our main way of allaying the fears. So up here, what we see is bravado. The play of courage, the play of greatness, largeness, toughness, bigness. If down here, the fear was, and I want to add in here, unworthiness. So unlovability, unworthiness. What would you see at the surface? You'd see the opposite of unlovability and worthiness. You'd see all the beautiful, good characteristics, the noble, giving, loving, accepting, saintly maybe, service-oriented qualities coming out on the lily pad. Because that's what convinces us this is not real, because we're terrified that it is real. What if we fear our own power? We fear our own largeness. As Marianne Williamson said, we fear the light. What are you going to see up here if you fear the light? Lampshade. We're going to see playing small. So it's like there is a flip that happens here. That the fears are down here. To avoid them, we flip into a behavior that would attempt to demonstrate that this is not true about us. And it's very, very simple. And it's valuable to us. Because we've already said this. If you try to directly alter a behavior, while this stuff is taking place, being filtered through this conditioning, some expression of this powerhouse down here is going to be distorted and then expressed as a different behavior. Here's the beauty of this recognition. The recognition that what we fear here is inversely expressed at the surface. If you spot a behavior or a series of behaviors at the surface, and with emotional opening, so this is not an intellectual inquiry, this is really an emotional exploration, you ask, what if that behavior was not available to me? What would it feel like emotionally if I couldn't engage in that strategy or behavior? Fairly quickly, you can flip into the emotional underset and meet those emotions. Then you'll find that a host of behaviors will automatically fall away, that the unhealthy stuff takes care of itself. So it's a really direct and very effective way of exploring. So I feel like there is an alternative, and it's a loose model. It's a model of suggestion rather than a prescriptive model, and it kind of looks like this. What if, as you've been discovering all week, it was possible that the needs of any moment could allow you to combine these in any way to be brought to bear in that moment? Even seeming opposites, so that strength and humility could be used simultaneously in the right moment. Because it's just an opening, it's just a welcoming, just an invitation. What if we had a model of authenticity that was inclusive, that recognized the self as part of something greater, something bigger, something more important, and that was open enough to use any quality that's at our disposal to galvanized, focused service in the moment? There's a Sanskrit word for it, which is dharma, which means right action in the moment. D-H-A-R-M-A. Because dharma is not predicated on a system. Dharma is not even really predicated on a sense of overarching moral. It's a personal, truthful response born from freedom, born from truth, born from openness to the specific needs of the moment. Because here's the thing in authentic leadership. You may be required to lead in a way that is counterintuitive for you in any given circumstance, in a way that is not natural for you when you're driven by fear. So for instance, you may be a peacemaker in life and you may be called to combat, you may be called to confrontation, or you may be someone who likes to include everyone's opinion in a decision-making process, and then find that you've got a time deadline that is so short that you have to be the one who says, I'm taking the reins here and taking charge because one of us has got to make a decision, and guess what? I'm the leader. I need to do this. And so I feel like there's not a formula for leadership that can ever be authentic, because a formula is not authentic. A formula is a set of rules that keeps us compromised. And in this, I feel there's at least the potential for that compromise to fall away. And the deep authenticity and deep inner guidance can actually pull through us the qualities that are needed in any moment. And I don't know whether this is true or not, but I get the strong sense that if people were willing more generally to do what you guys have done this week, in other words, to turn inwards, to turn deeply and to face those fears, so those fears no longer own us. So there's a different and fuller expression of freedom here, that this would be possible, and the world would stand a chance. Because at the moment, born from the existing mindset, any future proposition for a model of leadership is highly, highly likely to be driven by a different set of fears than we've seen up until now. Simple as that. This is the only way that I understand that we can break out of that straitjacket. And so there's the invitation to you guys to do what you've been doing and to be honest about what that takes and honest about the results of it. Because only when you turn and meet these fears do you experience that they actually don't own you. And only in that can the freedom be big enough to encompass all of the qualities that it will take for healthy leadership to be born on this planet. So there's the invitation.